Call the meeting to order. Rebecca, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Here.
Hallie.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Gandy.
Here.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight? If not, I'll read through the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the October 12th, 2020 council meeting. Approval of October 16th, 2020 payroll in the amount of $119,882.34. Approval of October 19th, 2020 special payroll of $24.84. Resolution authorizing fund transfers. Acceptance of the library board minutes. Acceptance of the beautification minutes. Resolution of employment in the fire department. Resolution of employment in the waste sewer department. Resolution of wage adjustment in the water department. Approval of liquor license for Anonymous Entertainment. Approval of total claims in the amount of $183,489.07.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay, it's moved by Anderson,
Second.
second by Toohill.
I have a couple points.
Guess, questions?
Yes. The beautification minutes. I know Mr. Councilmember Halley is a member of that board. Just a reminder, if they would, when they prepare those notes or minutes, if someone would sign on the minutes as who prepared them.
I'm not on that committee. Just a friend of theirs.
Okay.
I did go to that meeting.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing it up. I just wanted to let you know, they did decide to approve the design of the the Central Park tables with the bricks, and the beautification is going to pitch in a little bit towards it. They have to decide on what amount, so.
That's great. Could you?
That's why I went there that day.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, you can, let me share the information with the two co-chairs
Okay.
with you, so if you want to reach out and ask them to just put a respectively submitted by, that's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, just so we know who's preparing the minutes.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Second thing, if I may.
Yes,
I
go
think
ahead.
I'm looking at the resolution of wage adjustment in the water department. Probably should be, I think that was probably from an old form.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing signature for Mayor Malloy.
Oh, okay. I'll have to make sure he changes that.
Third thing is, if I may ask, this is the last one.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Who is, it says, recommend approval of liquor license for Anonymous Entertainment. Well, does anybody know what that is?
I think that group, or whoever that is throwing a Halloween party Saturday night at the Phoenix Rising Hall.
I see. And they're anonymous.
I think they want to remain anonymous in case there's a,
Rebecca has, do you
The
want to
applicant
say?
is Alana Holbrook.
Who's who? Excuse me?
The applicant, her name is Alana Holbrook.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Toohill.
yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Thank you, that was approved unanimously. Under public forum appearances, I'm actually going to call Adrian Logston. This is for the Multicultural Committee. You see that there are 2 minutes there that once she gets done, we can accept those minutes, but they are requesting that the name be changed. So I thought I will call her and then she can explain, their reasoning. So hang on.
Hello.
Hi, Adrian. This is Connie. And
Hi.
I do have you on speakerphone here, so the council hopefully can hear you okay. Jason, can
Okay,
you hear?
great.
Can you hear that okay too,
Yes.
Jason?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So go
Okay,
ahead.
great.
I explained to them that you're requesting a name change.
Yes. So thank you for having me, everyone. We are hoping to change our name from the City of Fairfield Multicultural Committee to the City of Fairfield Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And I just have something short to read to you that covers kind of what we've discussed so far as a committee and why we feel this name change is important. We feel that we need a name with a broader scope that encompasses everyone we hope to support. So rather than having our committee name be specifically focused on those who represent different cultures, we wanted our name to also include any person, particularly those who may feel marginalized due to their life situation. And we also feel that most community members, ourselves included, understand the title and role of a multicultural committee more as a group that organizes cultural events and celebrations at the square, which is totally great, but we feel that that role is already filled. And we kind of wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction. So we have yet to finalize an official mission statement, as we've only met a couple of times briefly, but the consensus so far has been that we all hope to provide some form of authentic and informed leadership for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community. So a few of the things we touched on are that we want to ensure there are resources available for everyone in our community, particularly those who may be in need of more support to lead a successful life here in Fairfield. We want to ensure that people who are new to our community feel welcomed and included. And we want to make sure all citizens have a fair and equal chance to achieve their goals, regardless of their background or life situation. So we talked about potentially partnering with organizations that already exist in our community to ensure they have what they need. And then moving forward, we want to see where the holes are. So where more support is needed, and then use our creativity as a group to try and fill those holes. We also talked a little bit about educational opportunities, particularly for the youth in our community. Perhaps there are ways we can help facilitate more educational opportunities that encompass the many different cultures and life perspectives that exist in Fairfield. Or perhaps there are ways we can aid in communication between people who may come from very different backgrounds. So these are all ideas we very briefly discussed. But in the short time we've had together, we did manage to all agree that we want a name that would provide us with the scope to touch on all of the aspects and people within our community that we want to be of service to. So those are my thoughts.
Great. Thank you very much, Adrian.
Absolutely.
Appreciate all those comments. Any questions from council? If not, I guess I would take and entertain a motion to accept their name change.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Adrian, that was passed unanimously. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. So I guess the next motion is I would take a motion to accept these minutes, their first and second meeting.
I move we accept the minutes of the Multicultural Committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy.
Did she prepare both sets of minutes, Adrian?
It says a letter.
Actually, no. I know Ken Malloy did one of them.
It says a letter.
Alita Motti
Marty did the second.
did the second one. Okay, well, I'll talk to them and make sure that they sign off on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I think it is.
The
Yeah.
second one is first. I
Yeah.
don't think it is.
I think you're right. Okay, so is there any discussion about those minutes? Okay, so there's a motion and a second to accept those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Down to resolution, action items, and ordinances. The first resolution, consider, yes.
Before we get going on those, which are general business, do we want to have the library report
Sure.
so that
Do
she
you want to
could
do that?
come
Because
in
I
and-
see
and she
Rebecca is
can
here
get
now.
going?
Okay, so we'll just move Rebecca's annual report up so that she doesn't have to stay for another 45 minutes.
I don't know if we'd do that, but yeah, just,
Okay, so it's my great honor to deliver the library's 167th annual report, and I'm the only librarian in Iowa who can say that. Does everyone have a copy of the annual report? I left them in your mailbox. Okay. First page has to do with our general fund. Looking at town contracts, we have contracts with Libertyville, Lockridge, Packwood, Pleasant Plain, and Vedic City. Does someone need
I'm just
a?
gonna go grab it.
Okay, sure. I got it. And you'll notice that what came in was a little higher than what was budgeted, and that's because one of them didn't pay on time the previous year.
Thank you.
And so they made up for that. Library concessions consist of copies, room maintenance, faxes, microfilm copies, and laminations. And I would say mostly because of COVID in that last quarter, people were not coming into the building. And that's the kind of revenue that's generated on site when people come in. So it's a little bit lower than we had projected, but still higher than the previous year. Library fees, that consists of overdue fines and payment for lost or damaged library materials. And again, that was lower because that's the kind of thing that happens more on site. When you go down to disbursements, I attended the Public Library Association conference in Nashville this last year. That's where I learned how libraries were offering curbside delivery service. That was new to me. And of course, we've used it a lot this last year. Moving on to line 6310, building maintenance and repair. The library received installation of a new boiler, humidifier, and chiller. If you look at the next to last page of your packet, you'll see the June 30 statement of expenditures, where I have subtracted out the costs associated with the new HVAC system and listed them at the bottom. You'll see that without the HVAC system, we came in at 95.3% of our normal budget. Line 6499 in the general fund is other contractual services. We lost 2 employees to COVID-19 last year. Both of them had pre-existing conditions that put them at risk, and they resigned without notice. The lower salary figures that you see at the top were partially offset here under other contractual services. There were some former employees who filled in temporarily. Going on to the next page, Memorial Fund. Under receipts, gifts, and memorials, there were more patrons who stepped forward to make donations this year for library materials. One notable one is Paul Prather, who owns Everybody's Whole Foods. He decided to match the city's commitment, and we have been receiving a check for $500 every month, month after month. And so the city has committed $6,000 to that budget, that part of the budget, and so has Paul. When you look at interest income from the endowment fund, our interest on CDs has been a little higher, and so we've had stronger revenue there. Going on to the book sale fund. You'll notice that book sale revenue was lower. Under receipts, it was lower this year because we had a book sale all queued up and then COVID happened. But fortunately, we had revenue from book sales in the prior year that enabled us to continue offering programs and events as normal. In addition, we started a staff wellness program, and trustees instructed me to make staff safety a priority. And we use book sale revenue to cover things like sneeze guards, air purifiers, masks, signage, and face shields, etc. Going on to the endowment fund, I'm kind of skipping over the capital fund because, as you'll notice, nothing has been happening there for a couple of years. The library endowment fund basically consists of some stocks that were donated. The net effect this year is that we gained $2,604. Each year when we're audited, I always explain that the library didn't invest this money. It was donated by a local patron. And since it tends to earn a higher rate of return than certificates of deposit, we've been allowed to keep it there, at least so far. Moving on to cash reconciliation, the next page, you see that at the top, you're seeing how the funds are invested and where. You see the list of, under cash reconciliation, First National Bank. We have a couple of CDs and Libertyville Savings Bank, Pilot Grove Savings Bank, and Iowa State Bank. So since we're a public entity, we cannot invest this donated money that dates back to the 1950s by putting it at risk. And so we put it in local banks in certificates of deposit. Down at the bottom, the rental house, that balance stayed pretty steady. We used the revenue to make some, do some repairs and maintenance on that building. And then moving on to library collections, you have the physical collection up to about here on the page. And we practice steady state collection development, meaning that we don't try to grow the size of the collection. As we add new materials, we withdraw things that are no longer so popular with patrons. And this has the benefit of keeping the cost of insuring the collection stable. At the bottom, you see more of the electronic components of the collection. The state library is helping us to offset the increased cost of physical items by negotiating for affordable group rates on databases. So we've been able to save quite a bit through the state library on databases like Transparent Language, which is really popular here, and the Foundation Center Grants database. The cost has come down quite a bit on that. You'll notice that they're also growing the collection of downloadables considerably. The downloadable audiobooks down here and ebooks have just steadily increased and that's the state library doing that. Thanks to donations from a local patron, we've increased magazine subscriptions by 5, and that's it for collections. Moving on to the last part of the report, library usage, circulation. Big picture, I would say look under programs and traffic where it says traffic in the building, and you'll see that traffic in 2020 was about 75% of what it was in the previous year. And we can say, okay, COVID hit in early March and we lost a quarter of the year in traffic. But then look down toward the bottom where it says total circulation. Our circulation was 84%. And we can say that was largely due to the curbside deliveries.
You keep talking away from the mic, that way you can talk.
Oh, okay, sure. And again, room reservations, that's something that happens when people are in the building more. That was at 76% because we were closed that last quarter. But internet sessions were at 83%. We did start offering free Wi-Fi service from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening, and a lot of people were pulling up curbside and taking advantage of that. So, okay, and if you go to the very last page of your packet, trustees have adopted a pandemic response plan that relies upon guidance from the Harvard Global Health Institute, and it color codes communities into 4 categories based on a moving 7-day average of COVID cases per 100,000 people. Today we're in the red. Most of the last few months, we've been in the orange. And so if you look down below, you'll see the implications for services. During that orange phase, we were offering all of those services that you see listed. In fact, we've been able to offer all services pre-pandemic in new ways, with the exception of browsing. Having actually people coming in and being hands-on with the collection is not something we've been able to do. But all of these other services, we've continued to offer either through hybrid approach of using Zoom and the meeting room, or by using Zoom alone. So, any questions? That was fast.
Questions, council? Well, we appreciate everything that you guys have been doing. We know you've been working harder than normal.
It's a more labor-intensive model
Yes.
of service, because in the past, people would come in and do their own browsing and locate what they wanted and bring it to the front desk. And for the last few months, we've been teaching a lot of people how to place holds online. And whereas we used to arrive in the morning with maybe 5 to 10 hold requests accomplished overnight, now it's more like 90-some when we walk in the morning. So a lot of people have learned how to use that feature of the catalog, which is great.
And are a lot of libraries using this phased approach?
Yes. In fact, I took a survey. I reached out to library directors in 12 communities that have been viewed by our city administrator as comparable in terms of size. And I looked at what they were doing, and I made a kind of a spreadsheet, a grid to share with the trustees. It's really interesting because I attended a forum for library directors last Friday. Many of those people attended as well on Zoom. And some of them have reopened in the sense that they allow limited browsing, but most people aren't taking advantage of that. They like the curbside delivery service because it's safe and it's really convenient for them. They can drive up and get what they want and drive away. So I predict that when we do go yellow and we're bringing more people into the building, that the lion's share of our patrons will want to continue with curbside delivery.
Okay, great.
I've heard so many people who have really appreciated, the curbside service. I mean, I think especially, under the circumstances, they feel very safe and they feel that, they can still have access to the library. So I guess I would just say it has truly been a positive, and all of the efforts are really rewarded in the respect of the appreciation from people.
We have had people sending us appreciation cards that we find in the book drop, and we even had a gift certificate for taking everyone out to lunch on staff. And yeah.
Well, it really has been very profitable for continuing to, appreciate and be able to access the library.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, we now have mobile printing, which means that you can use your cell phone or other portable device or your home computer, and you can send a print job directly to the library's printers in-house. We'll release those print jobs and deliver them to your curbside vehicle. So more and more people are taking advantage of that too.
Rebecca, again, great job keeping things going in difficult times.
Thank you.
I did get a call from a citizen asking about inside spaces for free Wi-Fi.
Uh-huh.
And my understanding was under orange, people were allowed to come into the meeting room
Right.
and use the Wi-Fi.
And the nice thing is that meeting room has its own separate air handler, and we have a special air purifier in that room. And we arrange the tables in a big rectangle, so people can come in and sit down and be socially distanced, one from another, and have clean air, and use the laptop computers that are strapped to the table, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
But under red, that's going to be not available until our cases.
When
come
we're
back.
in the red, then that part is closed
Closed.
off,
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
But we've only been in the red for one business day so far, and we hope it's not long.
Yep.
Everybody wear your masks.
Great. Do we need a formal acceptance of this?
We normally do.
That's what I was
Move to
thinking.
accept
thank
library
you.
report.
Second.
Okay, moved by Hallie, second by Gandy, is that you?
Yes.
Any other questions? Not, Rebecca, go ahead and call the roll. Thank you,
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Hallie,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And thanks, Rebecca, for giving the report. It all sounds great.
Thank you.
Keep up the good hard work. Okay, so back to resolutions. So the first two resolutions are regarding this vacation of real estate, Byrnes property and Simon's property. John, again, you want to just give us the drill again in case the public isn't aware? You can update them again.
This is like what you've done before with the Huffman Estates property that we did 3 steps to. We're in step number 2 here right now. The important language in each of these resolutions for Byrnes and for Simmons is basically that you tonight are hereby vacating. Last meeting, you set this down for hearing tonight, so I guess we see if anybody's here to disagree with vacating. But then you make a finding that you're going to vacate on both of these and set it for a hearing on transferring these, as we agreed we do in exchanging easement sites. And that'll be November 9th is when we're asking for it.
Okay, so
Okay?
I don't think there's anybody out in the lobby. So, okay. So let's just take these one at a time. The first resolution on the Byrnes property.
So I move we vacate the Byrnes property as described.
Okay, moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Anderson. Any other questions, discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Thank you. That was approved unanimously. Now let's go to the Simon's property.
Motion that we vacate the Simon's property. Simon's property.
Okay, moved by Anderson,
Second.
second by Rasmussen. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Great, thank you. That was approved unanimously. Next action item is consideration of accepting the Libertyville Road Sanitary Sewer Project as substantially complete. I don't know if Mel or Steve's going to do that. Yes, Steve's going to.
Yes, I got tapped. Okay. So this is for accepting the Libertyville Road Sewer Project as substantially complete. There was a letter on the agenda. I'll kind of cover some of the things related to it here, and then you guys can go ahead and vote. Just kind of thinking a little bit about this project. We opened this project, started work on it in 2014, before we started working on step 2. So this one's been a long time in the works, and we're finally to this point on this project, which is good. And so what you're doing with this resolution, or vote, would be to accept the project as final and release $16,000 of the retainage to Drish Construction. The reason that we're doing this kind of in a stepwise fashion is there are still a few items on the punch list that have not been completed. But Drish has been making progress on them, and we're still going to hold that little bit of retainage. But what you're doing tonight is basically starting the warranty period on the project. So the 2-year warranty will start after tonight's council meeting. There is a little bit of trench settlement left to address in a couple of the backyards that both Melanie and I think that another winter will do a lot of good. Even this summer they were still settling more, so we want to give those some more time to to be done. That way Drish can come in and fix it and be done with it, rather than having to come back several times to do it, so.
Great, thank you.
And I guess there will likely be a change order at next council meeting for a little bit of seeding on this project. So even though you're releasing the retainage, there's still a little bit of extra that you will be seeing. I think that change order is going to be in the neighborhood of about $1,600. It'll be pretty small. So.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you have anything else to add? No. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, if no questions, entertain a motion to accept this.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Anderson, second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Alley?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. Next resolution, consideration of resolution declaring an official intent under Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 to issue debt to reimburse the city for certain original expenditures paid in connection with specified projects. You've got the opinion of project cost there. This has to do with Highway 1 South. Melanie?
So the resolution for this action item is to allow the engineering and land cost associated with Highway 1 to be reimbursed by a bond in the future. The bond amount in your resolution is for $1.5 million, but this is in an abundance of caution. If you would click, Jason, on the opinion of probable cost. The estimated total project cost at this point is $5.9 million, but that includes over $900,000 in contingency. You'll also see on that sheet that we have around $4.3 million in established funding, but another 1.6 of potential funding sources. The transportation safety, the TSIP program, we've applied for that and generally roundabouts score pretty well. But the reason why the resolution that you have is for 1.5 is because not all of this funding is in hand. We're expecting the bond amount needed will be closer to $600,000. But again, we want to take an abundance of caution since we're early in the stage. It's an early stage in the game.
Questions, council?
When will we find out about the grant?
I believe it's typically around the first of the year.
Similar to the one we got
At the bridge one, yeah. And then the curb ramp program that's on there, again, that is one that's pretty easy to get, but we won't apply for that one until right before starting the project. It's a small amount, but every little bit helps. And then, of course, as we continue to have design changes recommended by the DOT, and recognize additional costs that we weren't expecting, we will continue to ask DOT to maybe chip in some more as well. But like I said, we'll recommend this motion for now, just as an abundance of caution.
Are we still up in the air on the two options?
That's your next item. Well, that's not your what you're voting on. Both a roundabout with South Junction Road and without South Junction Road has been approved by the DOT. And so what we would recommend is, along with the public hearing regarding land acquisition that we're setting for your December meeting, is that also at that December meeting, you as a council officially vote on one of those options. And that way we can start land negotiation with neighborhood builders, knowing, the council and staff and everyone is on the same page. So both designs have been approved, but we'd like the council to act on that.
Price-wise, that's going to be considerably different, right? One design over the other? With land acquisition and extra road and design?
Considerable. Considerable is a relative term. Okay. There will be more land acquisition needed from neighborhood builders to keep that connection of South Junction Road. Where we as staff think that it's worth that cost is we would have to continue to play catch up in this area. If we close South Junction Road, then Court Street becomes the road, or we have to work on putting more funds in the future to keep traffic from going down Court Street. So there are pros and cons, and we'll definitely talk about those in more detail at that December meeting. But right now, staff's recommending that we connect South Junction Road.
Right, so all I'm really asking is, you're confident that this estimate will cover either plan?
Oh, I'm an engineer. I'm never confident about cost estimates.
The part of the covering the cost is we have this built into our bonding plan for the next 10, 15 years. We're working on adjusting that because of the fire station and because of this project getting pushed back a year. So we've already talked to Travis Squires with Piper, it's not Piper Jaffray anymore, it's something else. But anyway, they changed names. But we're working on that with them to get that plan put together better again, or back to where it shows what we're actually doing. Okay. So we'll have something for you when we start getting closer to that bonding process, but we've got a plan to take into this account along with the fire station, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And the reason we're taking this on tonight is because we need to commit to the reimbursement before a certain date.
You need to do the reimbursement within 30 days of incurring those preliminary costs.
Okay.
And we're just at the point where we've used all of the city budgeted funds for this year, as well as the swap budgeted funds. So we're starting, as we start land acquisition in the next couple months, we'll be realizing costs that, again, hopefully get covered by other grants in the future, but they could be covered by the bond if not.
Okay.
Okay. So, entertain a motion to push this resolution with a public hearing for December. Oh, no, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I?
Yep.
Sorry, take that back.
So I'll move that we consider the resolution declaring official intent to incur debt.
Great, thank you very much.
Second?
Okay, so it's been moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Okay, now we can go to that resolution.
Setting the public hearing.
Yeah, setting the public hearing for December 14th.
Yeah, and what I want to point out here is, so state law requires that we have a public hearing prior to invoking eminent domain laws. With the sanitary sewer project, step 1 and step 2, Fairfield opted to do this public hearing at the very beginning of the project. That means that then at the point, where negotiations are no longer working, we can move straight into a more formal process. Some cities choose to wait and do the public hearing once we know that we have a property that needs to go to eminent domain, but Fairfield's history has been to do this up front. So that's why we've chosen to do Highway 1, do the public hearing up front. I'll remind the council and we'll let the property owners know that we intend to do good faith negotiation. We have JCG working for us, appraisers to determine fair market value of the property. So we intend to negotiate this friendly negotiation before invoking eminent domain. So again, this is a abundance of caution, so to speak.
One question. I was noticing on this map that the majority of these easements along South Main are the DOT expanding their right-of-way. So is the city negotiating on the DOT's behalf to expand their right-of-way, or who will own the property?
So we are negotiating the permanent right-of-way in DOT's name.
Okay.
Easements, any permanent easements for the storm sewer and the temporary easements for construction are going to be in the city's name.
Yeah, and I noticed those were primarily around, near the roundabout, but along
There's
South
a lot
Main.
of temporary along South Main too.
Okay, but the majority of the land that's going to be purchased from the property owners along South Main will be then owned by the DOT.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And handled similar to the way it is now where, you know, our water main occupies that right of way, but yet they control access rights, so to speak. All driveways along Highway 1 currently are required to have DOT permission and will continue after this.
Motion to approve the public meeting December 14th.
Moved by Anderson,
Second.
second by Rasmussen. Any further discussion?
One thing, sorry, I would like to add, with the current COVID situation, we will offer for individuals that they can make an appointment with city staff if they don't want to come to the public meeting. We'll obviously let them know they can provide a written statement for a public meeting, but staff will also be just continuing to work with property owners in the different time.
Great, thank you. Any other question or discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Thank you. Last resolution, consideration of adoption of revised housing tax increment financing objective and policies. Aaron?
I presented this change in the policy to the Economic Development Committee earlier this evening. The main reason for this is we're changing a little bit of the incentive timelines, where the timeline said you could only use 10 years or 7 years as a finite number to get reimbursed for the public infrastructure that somebody put into the development. What we've changed is we're still leaving it, the starting negotiation is at 10 years or 7 years, depending on if it's a LMI project or a market rate project, but we're allowing us to go all the way up to state law allows time frame, which is up to 20 years. So we're allowing us a little bit, it's giving us a little bit more freedom to negotiate than what we currently had in our policy prior to. That way, when, for example, with our North Campus Village Phase 6, where it's a market rate project which takes LMI money out of the increment, it allows us to give that increment back to the developer so that he can get his money out, the public infrastructure dollars that he's invested, we can reimburse him for that.
So one point I made at the meeting, I'll share with the rest of the council who wasn't there. We actually did extend the neighborhood builders development agreement to 15 years because they reduced the total assessed value that they were going to build, and the city needed to get our money back for putting in the road. So we had to extend the time period in order to get that back to 15. So we've already extended something past this 10-year period. It works just fine. Every development agreement is unique, so this just gives more flexibility, which is a good thing for encouraging development in town.
I would move for approval.
I'll second it.
Okay. Moved by Rasmussen, second by Hallie. Any other discussion?
The question, when was this is a amendment or modification from the previous agreement or previous codification? When was that? When was the original one?
I think it was in 2015,
2015?
I believe.
So it's been about 5 years or so?
Yep.
Thank you.
December 15, 2014.
Thank you.
Close.
15 days, 16.
It was in the ballpark.
Close.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, please call the roll.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That was approved unanimously. Under the mayor's report, we'd like to set our December meeting for December 14th, which is our normal
First
meeting.
council meeting.
Yeah, normal first council meeting.
I think we would normally set it for the week after that, but it doesn't, if you look at the weeks, as far as 3 weeks and 2 weeks before and after, you're gonna have a 3-week period either way. And the 14th is just work, since it's the first Monday or first normal meeting, I think it's just easier to do it on that day.
The next week gets into the week of Christmas, and if
Yeah,
anybody's
right.
gone,
That's the other thing.
we
It's
didn't
the
want to
week of
miss,
Christmas.
we didn't,
So this will be the sole meeting for the month of December?
Correct.
Yes. We don't need to vote on that, do we? No, okay. So, mark your calendars, December 14th will be the December meeting. I have 2 appointments to boards. The first is the Board of Adjustment, and I would propose Teresa Huffman. She's an owner of J.C. Huffman, knows a lot about building. And the second appointment on the beautification, oh, by the way, Teresa Huffman is replacing Julie Stevens because she has resigned. So the second appointment is the Beautification Commission, Mark Lesniak, and he's filling a vacancy. So I'd entertain a motion to accept those.
I have
Yeah?
one question about Board of Adjustment.
Mhm.
Teresa's great. Will that be any kind of issue if we do the rezoning and get rid of some of the islands that we currently have, since they're located in one of those?
The annexations would go through planning, zoning, not Board of Adjustment.
Not Board of Adjustment at all?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Okay, thank you. I was like trying to figure out, yeah. I wasn't thinking that they were
Their
outside the
business-
city.
Their business is outside the
Yeah.
city, in the city.
Yeah.
So,
I'll move to approve both appointments.
Okay, thank you, Michael. For a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Hallie, second by Toohill. Any other discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. I have asked Aaron to set up a couple, kind of show and tell for the wastewater treatment plant. And also just the water treatment plant. I haven't been there in many, many years, so I guess you're all invited. And Aaron, if you'll let him know if that's something that you're interested in going seeing, either one of those, let Aaron know. And he's going to set up some times when we can go out there, probably early morning before everyone goes to work. So,
Just so we don't violate open meetings laws, we'll just have 2 of you go at the same time. So that way nobody can say we had a quorum at something, so, and have to publish agendas and all that stuff.
yeah.
So I'll just, let me know if you want to go and have a tour of the sewer plant or the water plant, and I'll get those times set up. Go from there.
Okay. That's all I have. John, do you have anything tonight?
Couple things. One, and Aaron, did you happen to go to the Board of Supervisors meeting?
I did not.
Okay. I've had conversations with both of the people at the county attorney's office and also Darren Hamilton. Every year, under our law center operating agreement, which is a 28E agreement, coming into the month of November, if we want to negotiate or renegotiate something, we're supposed to let them know we'd like to have a joint meeting. I've indicated to both the county attorney's office, Pat and Chauncey, and to Darren that we would like to do that in November at one of our meetings. I don't think anything's been agreed to by them at this point, but it didn't sound like it was a problem for the board to come and have a joint meeting with us. We've done this before a few years ago. Essentially, this time, what the purpose of a meeting like that would be is to discuss the communications part of the operating agreement and how we manage our dispatchers and some of the costs of that communication. And I don't think it'll be a major controversial thing, but I think they want to air the way it's been operating for several years and whether there are some changes that should occur. And I think our chief of police, maybe at the next meeting, would be a person to explain some of his thoughts on how this could work. It's just the reverse for the last 15 to 20 years, I think since 2003, of the way it operated for about the prior 25 years when the sheriff's department supervised dispatch. Right now, the police department and the chief of police supervises dispatch. And I think there just is some interest in exploring the possibility that some of that gets switched around. I know they assigned more responsibilities to the chief dispatch person, who is Shannon Peaster, but there's more to discuss. So that's coming up. We don't have to have that joint meeting in November, but we have to have asked for it by November. So sometime between now and the end of this fiscal year, if we're going to strike a different understanding, we do that and adopt a amendment to the operating agreement. But that's going on. The only other thing I would report on is we've had and I don't know if Paul's going to report anything on public safety or not as far as the ambulance, but we've had a really nice first month as far as the ambulance. It was sort of like something you would have hoped to everybody have had in their imagination as far as the way an ambulance meeting could work administratively. When was that, Paul?
That was last Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, we had a nice, complete report from the care service provider, including graphs, charts, actual physical detail of costs and runs and things that we basically pulled teeth on for the last 3 or 4 years. So it was a nice experience to just sit there and let them talk and show us the information that we negotiated in the new contract. So other than that, the lawsuit that's pending hasn't been settled yet. They are over 2 months overdue on some discovery. County attorney and I and the hospital attorneys have talked about doing a motion to compel and asking the court to sanction them for being late. We thought we might be able to do a joint dismissal and just be done with it, but at this point, they're just ignoring us. So there'll be more to talk about after we go that route as far as filing a motion to compel them to do what they're supposed to as far as discovery. But that's out of ways. The trial on that is set for the end of August next year, so it's quite a ways out as far as things where we would be really butting heads. But right now, if we get rid of it, that would be desirable. So that's what I can tell you about where we are there. And I think, weren't you pretty satisfied, Paul, as far as
Yeah, I
that
think you
meeting?
gave an excellent report, and I agree with it. It's all true. If anybody's had a chance to see the ambulances around town, they're really nice-looking rigs. They call them rigs, you know. They're nice-looking rigs, and I think so far, so good. We've turned a new chapter has begun, and so far, so good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that joint meeting with supervisors. I know Aaron's going to share some information too in his report. Committee and board reports, Economic Development Committee.
We met tonight, had 4 items. One was the TIF policy revision that we've already handled. In addition, we talked about tax abatement discussion, specifically for single-family residents. Currently, we go up to 3 years, up to $75,000. A developer from the area has said that some cities offer up to 5 years. So we're not opposed to possibly extending it, perhaps not at 100% for year 4 and 5, but maybe some sort of step down, maybe 75% and then down to 50% in year 5. We also talked about if we did have a housing trust fund that we could offer a grant or a cash payment in place of the abatement that could help people who aren't planning on owning properties for the period of time where they would benefit from the abatement. So we're going to continue to fine-tune and discuss and explore that option. We talked about barriers in housing development, specifically for the minimum width, first floor width. We had a developer who has a very nice, I wouldn't call it a tiny home. It's over 1,000 square foot inside, but it's not a wide home. And currently, our code would not allow him to build that particular house on the lot that he owns or lots that he owns. And so he's in an R5 zone, which is a really interesting zoning. It's not trailer park, but it's oftentimes smaller lots than standard. So the committee's going to work on this with our city engineer and city administrator to try to develop something where the minimum width is in some way proportionate to the lot size. So if you're on a smaller lot, then perhaps you would be permitted to do a smaller width proportionately to allow more development on some of these small lots. So more on that later. And then finally, we just discussed briefly the development agreement with Vastu Partners LLC for their Urban Renewal District 6, which is actually complete, but we need to finalize the TIF agreement, or the development agreement, which we will do next month. We're looking at 10 years. Is that correct?
I'd have to go back and look at it.
Actually, this may extend beyond that, which is partly why we
Right.
did the amendment that we did. So the developer paid for the water and the sewer, and we would allow the developer to receive some of those TIF funds for a period of time to pay them back for that. So you should see that on the next meeting agenda, will be the first reading.
For the urban renewal
For the-
area.
yeah,
The
for-
developers agreement will set a public hearing at the next meeting for the second meeting in November.
Yeah, so we're going to have to get the urban renewal area finished, finalized in the month of November. And then we can deal with the development agreement and exactly what that will entail. That's it. Oh, that's not it. Sorry, one other thing. This wasn't in our meeting, but we talked about for the mixed-use zone that we're working on, this Monday at 6 o'clock, we have a public meeting. This one's called the informal public meeting. It's going to be at the Breadtopia building, which is the former Harper Brush building, northwest lot at the corner of 2nd and Grimes. And on January 4th, which is also a Monday. Is that right, Melanie? January 4th is a Monday, right? Yes. Yep. Planning and zoning will host the formal meeting. Now, this is the first time since COVID that we would be hosting a public meeting in City Hall outside of a council meeting. So we've had a lot of public meetings before our ordinance reading. Because this isn't on the agenda, we're not looking for a decision tonight, but just think about it a little bit. Maybe we can decide in November. Do we want to set some parameters for inviting the public? Should we have a maximum number of people that are allowed in this room? And people can then wait in the lobby until it's their turn and then come in and have their say. We like the idea of using this space because we have our camera set up and we can live stream. So then people who don't want to come at all but maybe can watch and message or make comments on the live stream, some sort of way to interact remotely. We don't know how many people will actually come. We don't know if this is even a necessary precaution. Maybe they're going to come Monday or they're going to talk to city staff or me or whoever between now and January 4th. And by the 4th, we don't have a big crowd. But again, it'll be a first time we're having a public meeting in our city hall outside of a council meeting. And we don't know what the numbers will look like with COVID, but it's just something worth discussing. You know, are we going to require masks, or how will we make it work so that we're protecting people's health? Again, we can come back to it in November.
What would the meeting be, a public meeting for again?
It's the final meeting to look at the actual code language to make the change to officially establish the mixed-use zone. So we're getting feedback on Monday, and that feedback will go into fine-tuning the actual final language. And the January 4th is the last chance the public has prior to the readings at council to have input. So we want to make sure it's accessible, which is why we want it to be streamed, rather than, say, use a different location where we couldn't stream.
What time again on Monday?
The Monday meeting is at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
This is the one that's this Monday coming. What is that? November
Second?
Second.
Second.
I think
second.
it's the second,
Yes, there you
yeah.
go.
And that's at Breadtopia.
Breadtopia. And that's the informal, but it's the same issue, same. We invite everybody in the area to come and provide input. And maybe there'll be some bread, we don't know. We can only hope.
How'd you know we're going to ask that question?
All righty, great, thanks. We're looking forward to having that come to fruition, or at least I am. Okay, Aaron, administrator and department reports. So maybe, I don't know, does Millie want
Mel, you want me to go first? Last week, the mayor and I sat in on an emergency management commission meeting where we discussed with the emergency management if they would be interested in funding our dispatch center through the emergency management communications levy that the county has, since it is a county-wide service. That if the commission votes to put that levy in place, then the Board of Supervisors are directed to do that. We didn't have a quorum there. We were trying to start the conversation. I have a budget put together that I've sent to Dispatch Supervisor Pester to look over and get back to me. And so the mayor and I will then, and Lee Demmett will go and talk to the other mayors that are on that commission so that we can impress upon them how the next emergency management communication meeting is important so that they're all there. Brett Farrell has a difficult time getting all of them together for that meeting.
What mayors are we talking about?
The city, the other
In the
communities in our
Yeah.
county, so Packwood, Batavia, Libertyville,
Vedic City.
Vedic City,
Lockridge.
Pleasant Plain.
Yes, and Pleasant Plain. So we're gonna make that communication. The other part of that is talking to the county about redoing that 28E, which is what John was talking about as far as if the communication levy doesn't go forward, my recommendation to the council and to the supervisors would be we send bills to each community by population so that that countywide service is then paid by population.
Because right now the city
Right.
residents are paying for that.
Correct. Right now, the city
Entire
pays
cost.
probably I would say close to 90% of it. The city pays it, and we use about 55% of the service, 55 to 60% of the service. So that's what we're working on with both that meeting and with the emergency management communication committee service. I forget what that committee is actually called. Commission. You also note that I had a memo in the board packet. When I had my evaluation, the Personnel Committee was requesting a quarterly budget summary. If you look at that, you'll see that our budget numbers are in pretty close line with being a quarter way through the year. We are a little bit above in the general fund, but that's strictly because of the purchase of the DOT property. That's also the reason why if you look at the treasurer's report and see the general fund balance is down, that's also why, that's where the majority of the money came from. Not a large concern as we still have the money market account, which is at a full balance as what the bank is allowing us to have. We also have the 4 CDs at Community First Credit Union also for overall balances. We are going to get our tax revenues here this month. We have them, we just haven't receipted them in. So that general fund balance will go up again here this month. So if you have I'll entertain any questions regarding balances or regarding that memo if you have any. Just wanted to make sure you all saw it so that you saw that I gave you a budget update.
And can you talk about local option sales tax? We know that we're filling that fund back up, but the
Correct.
receipts coming in monthly, how do they look?
According to the State Department of Management, our local option sales tax funds are coming back as normal. So we're anticipating we won't have to hold back on any of the promises that we've given this year. So we're setting okay. We've given out the majority of that money already, and so if you look at the treasurer's report, we are negative on the treasurer's report. You will get if you looked at last month, you would still see that negative. You'll get the treasurer's report next month. Rebecca had to have those transfers approved prior to finalizing our treasurer's report, so that's why you don't have it today. The local option sales tax is running a negative right now, but that gets reimbursed each month from local option sales tax, so anticipating that that will be replenished by the end of this fiscal year again.
I know we had, the city had requested reimbursement from the state, I believe, for COVID-19 expenses.
Correct.
How is that going to affect this budget report?
Well, that's, I finalized all of our requests from the auditor that was auditing our request. She's got everything now. We should get a check at some point in time for the total amount, which is, I think, $224,000. That'll be revenue coming in that we don't necessarily have budgeted. However, the police department has $80,000 in radio upgrades that is needed. They didn't know about that with the change in the radio tower that they're moving out towards Walton Lake. So we kind of have some of that money spent. We've got, Melanie needed some GIS assistance, so there's a little bit of money spent there, but we should be able to put that money, depending on what we decide to do with it, in the coffers to help our overall funds. It'll go into the general fund, but that's where it's supposed to go.
Great.
So when the funds come to us, to the city, then those requests you mentioned will be made to the city for or has that money already been spent?
Well, the police department radios have already been spent.
Okay.
I should say they've already ordered them. They don't have all of the radios in the squad cars, but they have all the handhelds.
We'll just do a budget amendment.
Right.
With the new revenue. And
That's correct.
expenditures.
Yep. We have to do that anyway with the fire department purchase, or I'm sorry, the DOT property purchase.
And the COVID money wasn't a reimbursement grant? It's not to reimburse expenses affiliated with it?
It's a reimbursement grant, yes, but we didn't have any true COVID costs per se.
Okay.
The majority of our costs are gonna be salary, or I should say, 100% of our reimbursement is salary.
Okay.
And so we're not obligated to spend them in a specific way, correct? It's a good thing for us.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for Aaron? Okay, Melanie?
So it's the time of year where we're trying to wrap projects up. I think the snow came earlier than all of the contractors wanted, but they will manage. Step 2 has progressed very nicely. One update that I got after I had published this is that the section of trail from Chautauqua Park north to Walton is now officially open. It's been unofficially open for a while, but now it's officially open, and they'll be working at opening up south of Chautauqua Park here in the weeks to come. And then they'll also be working on cleaning up the site and doing some temporary seeding of winter type crops that will help stabilize the soil over the winter and then do final cleanup in the spring. Wastewater treatment plant is also counting down to its last bits of work. A majority of the parts for the final clarifiers that we've been waiting on since January have arrived, so they are working on those. On the middle of the second page, back to our discussion about the lost revenues. Carpenter and Merrill were scheduled for reconstruction this summer, but in March, when the state was telling us to predict up to a 25% decrease in road use tax money and that or more of local option sales tax, we decided to put those projects on hold because those were the two main funding sources for that particular project. And it was at a point where we could stop it. Looking at the end of the fiscal year or the second quarter numbers, we did not see the decrease that the state was telling us to expect. So we have told French Renneker to go ahead and proceed with the design of that. We'll bid it in the spring, so it will be constructed a year later. But the good news is that we didn't see the decrease in road use tax that we were told to predict. And then lastly, also on roads, on the very last page, Part of the capital improvements plan discussed a bond package for streets for this upcoming year. It was a combination of TIF funds and general revenue bond for streets. So we're looking at a $1.3 million package. And this includes reconstructing 23rd, which is the Industrial Park Road, reconstructing 23rd from Burlington to Tyler, so that is pretty much all of it, reconstructing C Street from Burlington to Broadway, and reconstructing 9th from Burlington to Washington. Again, this was on the capital improvements plan, but we're at a point where we can start on design. We'll likely have, after we get French Reneker's contract approved, we'll probably have a reimbursement resolution for that one as well. But we are going to proceed with that. The bond package also was to include, or the package was to include retaping of Burlington. The reflective striping on Burlington was actually a tape that was put down when that road was transferred to the city. It has definitely outlived its useful life. And so we'd like to take the opportunity when we're retaping this to look at bike lanes. When the road was transferred to the city, the standard width of a bike lane was a little different than what it is now. They've tweaked those design guidance. So again, French Reneker will talk with the Public Safety Committee on if that's possible and if that's something we want to do for the whole length of Burlington portions. Definitely a lot of design that still needs to happen on that particular project, but we will go ahead and get the reconstruction projects under design and ready to bid in the spring.
I gotta ask one nerd question.
Only
So-
one?
One. It's a good one. So the tape, when it was originally put down, it was somewhat lower than the grade of the road. Is that right?
Yep.
So if you move it, do you have to create a little channel for it? Or you just slap it right on top of grade, say if you were to move and make the bike lane just a little bit wider?
So that's the discussion.
Okay.
In order for them to last for the 10 years that 15 years that these have lasted, you do need to put them in the groove. And so there are a couple places where the way the bike lane was put in there, it doesn't meet today's standards. So that's where we have to decide, are we going to put in a bike lane and have 2 grooves there? Or are we not going to put in a bike lane? And that's, it's something, there's technically not a right answer. It's, how you guys want to proceed as a city, and so that's why we'll have to really discuss it at the committee level.
I imagine it's less expensive to just tape in the existing groove
Right,
than creating a new groove.
right. Ideally, we would be able to just widen the groove so that you don't have 2 separate grooves, and shift the tape off to one side. But again, we haven't gotten that detailed yet.
Sounds like a nerd discussion.
You can tell he's excited, right? That's all.
All right, is that all, Millie?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill,
Second.
second by Gandy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
If it was unclear, I really wish I could be part of this nerd discussion, but I'm not on that committee anymore.